Recording in progress.
Wel, noswaith dda, croeso and welcome to tonight's meeting. This is a hybrid meeting, and my name is Councillor John Roberts, and I'm chair of the General Licensing Committee. The meeting will be live streamed and recorded and will be available for viewing after the meeting. Should the live streaming fail, the meeting will continue and the recording will be available through the Council's website following the conclusion of the meeting. Can I remind members that translation facilities are available, and for those attending on Zoom, to choose your language of choice. Right. For those wishing to speak at the chamber, please raise your hand. For those on Zoom, please use the raise hand function. We will alternate between speakers in the chamber and on Zoom. For those attending remotely, please note that those in the chamber will be unable to use the chat facility. Committee members who are attending remotely are required to leave their camera on throughout the debate and when voting in order to maintain the integrity of the decision-making process. If we do need to leave the meeting temporarily, pop a message in the chat function so the Democratic Services Officer is aware, and then let us know when you return. I expect everyone present and participating in this meeting to conduct themselves appropriately and be respectful to each other. That applies to members, officers, and members of the public. Thank you. We'll move on to the agenda. Item 1, apologies, please, Sharon.
You've received apologies for absence from Councillors Hannah Fleet, Tom Montgomery and Stephen Price.
Anybody else? No, thank you. Declarations of interest. Members are reminded they must declare the nature of the declared personal interests. Have we any, please? Councillor Harry.
Yes, thanks, Chairman. I've got two to declare. They're both prejudicial interests in items 6.2 and 6.3. The interest in 6.2 is that I have a relative who has an interest in a taxi operator based in Conway, which operates private hire vehicles. The interest in 6C is that that relative has a position within the Conway Taxi Operators Group, which I believe either does or has at some point represented the trade within Conway. So as those are both prejudicial interests, I will leave the meeting for those items. Thank you.
Yep. Thank you very much, Annie. Urgent matters, item 3, I'm not aware of any. Item 4, there are minutes of these are the minutes of the previous meeting held on the 22nd of the 5th, 2023. These are on pages 3 to 5 of your agenda pack. Can someone please propose and second that they are a true record of proceedings? Thank you, Councillor Andrew. Second, please, Councillor Harry. Could we have a show of hands, please? All in favour? Thank you. Item 5, Chairman's announcement. I haven't got any. So we'll carry on with item 6.1. And this is to consider a request to change the prohibited, I can't even say that, the prohibited street designation to consent for streets in Llanrwst. The report is going to be presented by John Donnelly, Principal Trading Standards and Licensing Officer. And we'll pass it over to John.
Thank you, Chair. As the Chair has said, the report is to inform members of an application by Llanrwst Town Council to change the designation of streets in Llanrwst from prohibited streets to consent streets. On the 15th of May 2023, the clerk to Llanrwst Town Council submitted a request on behalf of Llanrwst Town Council to Licensing Authority, requesting consideration be given to changing the designation of named streets in Llanrwst to allow street trading, redesignating the streets from prohibited to consent. The application is in Appendix A. The effect of changing the designation to a consent street would mean that any person wishing to trade on the street, footway, or other area which the public have access without payment may be able to obtain consent to do so from the council. That's Conway County Borough Council. Consent is obtained by way of an application outlined in the street pavement policy and paying the appropriate fee. The recommendation is, and the options available to members are to pass a resolution confirming the intention to change the designation. Pass a resolution confirming the intention to change the designation of the requested areas from prohibited streets to consent streets, and authority be given to the head of regulatory and housing services to take the appropriate statutory procedures to make the change. Members may also pass a resolution confirming the designation of the requested areas will remain prohibited for the purposes of street trading. Chair, there is a member of the town council who's willing to take any questions and may wish to put a statement forward if you wish, Chair. Thank you.
Thank you, John. I'm going to ask. Are you there in Llanrwst?
Are you there in Llanrwst? Are you there in Llanrwst? So would you like to speak now? Now is your chance.
Thank you.
Oh, thank you, Chair. We just we need a clarification and able to move this coming Christmas over a given weekend, and we just need to move forward. Really, that's the main thing. We've gone through public consultation, and there's been a number of requests for extra events, and this is one in particular that we think, as a councillor, we can provide and move forward with on an annual basis. And I don't know if anyone else, the clerk or Errol, has much more to say, and that's basically all I have to convey, really.
Diolch yn fawr, Eli.
That's all.
Thank you.
Dwi'n deall bod
I understand that Councillor Aaron Wynne would like to speak.
And then we'll take questions. All right.
Diolch yn fawr iawn.
Thank you. Thanks for allowing me to speak as I'm not a member of this committee. Yes, I'm very supportive of this application by Llanrwst Town Council. These plans that the council have are very exciting and definitely would give a boost to the town's economy. Is the translation working whilst I carry on? Yeah. That's fine. That's fine. So just to say, I'll wait for a minute whilst the headsets are being distributed.
Iawn, na gario
Right
ymlaen.
then, I'll carry on, and hopefully that the translation is working in the chamber here. I was just saying that I'm very supportive of this application by Llanrwst Town Council. The council has very exciting plans to give a boost to the town's economy, and I think this is the right step forward. I do have a question. I'm not sure if I'm allowed to ask a question this part, but I will ask. The question is, what's the length of the consultation on this, and when would we expect to get the full report back regarding a final decision from this committee? Thank you. Thank you.
Have you heard that question?
Thank you, Chair. The requirement for the public consultation is listed in Resource Implication 6.1 of the report. Public notice is stating the council's intention to pass such a resolution, and then a copy of the notice is served on the Chief Officer of Police, the Highways Authority. A period of at least 28 days must elapse from the time of the initial publication. Public notices will be placed on streets as well as in newspapers on 2 consecutive occasions. That consultation period is the date the first notice goes up. It's 28 days for any member of the public to respond. If there are objections to that consultation, then the matter comes back to committee. If there's no objections to that consultation, then if members determine today that the statutory process is followed, then they will be determined that they are consent streets.
Okay, that's the question, Dee.
Does that answer your question?
Any other questions, please? Can I ask members of the committee if they'd like to ask a question, or anybody on the Zoom? I've got Councillor Gronwy there with his hand up. Gronwy?
Diolch, Cadeirydd.
Thank you, Chair, and thank you for the opportunity to ask a question. I'm not on this committee, but I do attend the committee every 2 weeks that deals with events. I would just like to ask a question to John. I take that any application to hold an event would become before the SAG meeting to make sure that it is appropriate, because obviously I do certainly agree any business should have an opportunity to benefit from events like these. And another question is, it's quite a list, a vast list of streets. Is the application for all the streets, or are any of the streets not valid in order to carry on with what's coming back with where there's no objection to the streets being changed? Thank you, Gronwy.
Did you hear that?
Yes,
I
thank you,
think the
Chair.
question was for you.
Yeah, there's the designation, if members agree that they become consent streets, the authorization to grant the street trading license less with the head of service, ahead of regulatory and housing services via our policy. It doesn't come back to committee, but if the event reaches in excess of 500, there's two types of sole traders, single traders, the one-off traders who can trade on the street. They would go through any event would potentially require other licenses, such as under the Licensing Act. So we would guide people to go to the Safety Advisory Group, but we can't make them go to the Safety Advisory Group. But I think any application is also discussed in the public space management meeting, but the actual authority to grant rests with the head of service. With regard to the number of streets, the streets are all those requested on the list that are prohibited. And it is all those streets, if the people can object to individual streets being prohibited or consent, so that's up to the members of the public, but it is also any streets leading into those streets for 50 yards or 45.72 meters. So it's all the streets and byways that lead off those streets as well that are also prohibited.
Gofyn un cwestiwn ychwanegol, Cadeirydd.
Iawn, Gronwy. I'll go back to...
Go ahead with it. I take that they will have to, there will be some organisation without litter and all that, but obviously with events like this, that can be protected, so that they look after the place and tidy up after themselves legally.
Yeah, within the street trading policy, there are standard conditions, and conditions can be applied separately with regard to cleansing, the type of power that can be used, the location and safety of people attending any street trader. And I think there's a list of at least 22 conditions that have to be applied, which includes litter picks and litter bins.
Diolch yn fawr, thank you, that's fine. Diolch, John.
That's fine. Councillor Harry?
Yes, thank you, Chairman. I think having heard the feedback from the Town Council and one of the local members, I'm quite happy to propose that we start the statutory process in respect of the streets listed in Appendix A.
Thank you, Harry. I'll come back to you on that. I think Councillor Abdul wants to make a point.
Yeah, thank you, Chair. Just to clarify, I was looking at the Llanrwst Town Council's room probably under Lynn Jones. That's what showed me first. So I know that's what made me think I was in the wrong meeting. I was going to propose, but Harry already done it, so I'll second that proposal, Chair. Diolch yn fawr.
Diolch yn fawr, Councillor Abdul. Are there any other questions before I go to the vote? No, Llanrwst, are you happy that we go to the vote? Do you have anything else to say? Right, okay. Now you've heard the proposal from Councillor Harry and seconded by Councillor Abdul. Members present, are you happy to pass this resolution? confirming the intention to change the designation of the requested areas from prohibited streets to consent streets. And the authority be given to the head of regulatory and housing services to take the appropriate statutory procedures to make the change. All those in favour? All those against? Any abstentions? No. And that is passed. Thank you very much. Thank you, Llanrwst, and thank you very much for joining us. Diolch yn fawr.
Diolch yn iawn. Thank you very much. Diolch yn iawn.
Okay, we're in item 6.2 now. To consider a request from officers to allow officers discretion with regard to the age limit for accessible vehicles for both hackney carriages and private hire vehicles. This report is to be presented by John Donnelly, Principal Trading Standards and Licensing Officer. Thank you, John.
Thank you, Chair. The report is a request from officers. The members grant officers reasonable discretion with regard to the age limit of accessible hackney carriages and private hire vehicles. In order to increase the use of accessible vehicles and provide access to licensed vehicles to all members of the public, officers request reasonable discretion and the delegation of members to allow the licensing of accessible vehicles outside of the present 5-year process. An amendment to both the hackney carriage vehicle specification and private hire vehicle conditions would be required. The recommendation is that members consider the contents of the report and the information supplied by officers and resolve accordingly to amend the hackney carriage vehicle specification and private hire conditions to effect the proposed changes in section 3.3 and 3.5. Request officers to request officers to consult with the public, hackney carriage proprietors and private hire operators with a view to amending both the hackney carriage vehicle specification and private hire vehicle conditions, or members may take no action and continue with the present vehicle specification policy and private hire conditions. The proposed amendments are the first step in addressing gaps in the provision of accessible hackney carriage and private hire transportation and reduce disability discrimination in both the pre-booked private hire and the immediate hire hackney carriage sectors. The present hackney carriage vehicle specification age states, all vehicles subject to the application for a grant of a licence must be under 5 years old from the date of first registration. On subsequent licence, the vehicle must be in exceptionally good mechanical, bodily and exterior condition. The proposed amendment, if members agree, to the hackney carriage and vehicle specification age, all vehicles subject to an application for grant of a licence must be under 5 years old from the date of first registration. On subsequent licence, the vehicle must be in exceptionally good mechanical and bodily, interior and exterior condition. Accessible vehicles older than 5 years of age on first registration may be presented to the delegated officer prior to COC. The carriage must be in exceptional condition, including any ramps, straps, brackets, mountings, etc. The present private hire condition 2.1G, all vehicles must be under 5 years old from the date of first registration and on subsequent licence be in exceptionally good mechanical and bodily and exterior condition. The proposed amendment to the private hire vehicle conditions at 2.1G, all vehicles must be under 5 years old from the date of first registration and on subsequent licence be in exceptionally good mechanical and bodily interior and exterior condition. Accessible vehicles older than 5 years of age on first registration may be presented to the delegated officer prior to COC. The carriage must be in exceptional condition, including any ramps, straps, brackets and mountings, etc. There's an error in that paragraph. It should read the vehicle, not the carriage. The delegated inspecting officer, who will be a licensing enforcement officer, must hold the industry standard City and Guilds assured vehicle inspection for hackney carriage and private hire vehicles and make any decision in consultation with the principal officer. Where officers are unable to make a decision, the matter will be referred to the General Licensing Committee. The amendment works towards enabling all people in Conway to fulfil their potential, regardless of their background and circumstances. It's not mentioned in the report, but 2 of our officers are already qualified, and there's a further 2 officers to be qualified with regard to the qualification for standard City and Guilds vehicle assured training. Thank you, Chair.
Thank you, Mr. Donnelly. I'm going to ask the members here at present and on Zoom if they have any questions to Mr. Donnelly. Councillor Wood, would you like to open the debate, please?
Yes, please.
Thank you.
Question for John. The delegated inspecting officer must hold industry standard City and Guilds assured vehicle inspection. Is this equivalent or a higher standard than an MOT inspector or an authorised examiner would have for an MOT testing station at a public?
It's a similar qualification to a specialist inspection. It's similar to the DVLA inspectors, not necessarily an MOT inspector, but it is a qualification used throughout the UK for licensing enforcement officers with regard to inspecting vehicles.
Would the officer be looking underneath the vehicle, give it a full inspection?
The officers are trained to give the vehicle an inspection with regard to safety and condition.
Does that include put it on a ramp?
Not necessarily, but it can be should the officer wish to.
Okay. Does it not have to have a public examination beforehand?
The idea is that they would be inspected prior to going. They would still require them to go to a COC and an MOT testing station as well as the inspection by the officer.
And just remind me, that's every 6 months.
It says every 6 months. Yes.
Okay. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Wood. Anybody else? Yes, Councillor Keith, I can see your hand up.
Thank you, Chair. Again, it's just clarification really, prior to an officer inspecting the vehicle. Would it have the COC prior to the officer inspecting it? The only reason being is in case it's not seen as a fit vehicle from underneath, obviously, there's a bit of a who sees what first, because sometimes you can get a clean vehicle looking immaculate, but underneath it could be rotten, you see, or suspension worn to excess that maybe the officer wouldn't see unless it's on the ramp. So would it have the COC first? Then if it's deemed a safe vehicle, then inspected by an officer, or could it be that way around?
It's the other way around. It has to be, the officer is just saying that this vehicle, I believe, is fit to go for a COC. The certificate of compliance is performed by a Ministry of Transport tester, and they can make whatever decision they like with regard to the safety of that vehicle. Once the officers had that discretion, that vehicle will then be examined every 6 months by the COC tester. So it would be remiss for the COC tester to say the vehicle's fit, then an officer say it's not. There is the option of suspension of vehicles that officers already hold if they don't think it's safe, but that it can be appealed to a COC testing station. So it is the discretion for the officers to say it's over 5 years old. Let's see if it's in exceptional condition. Let's see if it's deemed safe in order to go further to a COC. Otherwise, you'd have the applicant would have to pay for a COC, have it granted, go to an officer, then the officer may say it's not fit. It's better to do it the other way around.
Keith, do you want to come back?
Yeah, I don't know. I'm just because an officer won't be on the floor looking under the vehicle, and I understand that if it fails a COC, that is going to be put right before it's on the road. But I feel that it's using up officer time, or an officer can't determine the full safety of the vehicle from walking around it to inspect it. It was pretty much along Councillor Andrews' comment regarding would it be inspected on a ramp by an officer, because it's if an officer says yes, the vehicle looks good from above, they're likely to grant pending the outcome of the COC. But what I'm saying is that you could have a really excessive. The only reason being where I'm trying to get to this is I've seen vehicles underneath suspension components are not given the same degree of rust proofing as what bodywork is, you see. So suspension and bearings and suspension bushes are not rust proof, the same as a bodywork, you see. So the car could be an absolute pear from underneath, but well looked after above. So as soon as you give an officer, the officer gives a green light for a car to be used, then it goes for a COC, then it could end up being a whole host of problems underneath. You know, I was just putting that out there, but obviously if it's already determined that an officer grants and then it goes for COC.
But for clarity, the officer will not be granting the application. The officer will be allowing any vehicle over 5 years old to go straight for COC. And then the COC tester will decide whether that vehicle is fit or not. So all the officer's doing is saying, yes, it's over 5 years old. Let's have a look. Has it got all its equipment? Is everything in the right place? Is it in exceptional condition? Does it look good? They can check the tires, they can check underneath the vehicle, and then the vehicle would then be referred to a COC testing station. If it fails the COC, it fails the COC. Officers have no redress against that. It all must be pointed out that officers do carry out random on-site, on-roadside vehicle inspections on a regular basis, and every single Hackney carriage and private hire vehicle is inspected by officers on an annual basis, and they are allowed to make a determination whether they think that vehicle's safe or not, but they cannot override the COC.
Okay, I was getting it right. Okay, that's clearer then. That's clear. It does help having older vehicles available to go before a COC, because obviously vehicle prices and that and whatever comes up. Thank you, John. Thank you.
I'm going to go to Councillor Abdul first.
Thank you, Chair. Just an observation, really. In past, the policy states that any vehicle over 5 years is not permitted to grant license, and it had to come to the members committee to decide, because we can override policy if we think that was fit. So to give the authority to the officers, of course, I also observed that consultation has been carried out with yourselves, the portfolio holder, and a few others, but it doesn't say what the report doesn't include comments of yourself and the head of services or the portfolio holders. And it's just not for this report, it's for the next two reports as well. So we don't really know. We know there has been consultation carried out, but we don't know what the comments are. Just a question to John, really. Can you just say what was the comment between the relevant?
For clarification, sorry, Councillor Abdul, for clarification, officers will not be granting the application.
Okay.
Officers will be saying that the vehicle is fit to go towards a COC test. All the other requirements for granting the application must be fulfilled. If all the other requirements are fulfilled, then officers can grant the license now if it's within policy. Anything that falls outside of policy, or if there's any dispute, then the matter will come to the General Licensing Committee.
I get that, but before it was coming to the committee anyway. It's just an observation. I have no issue with supporting that. But can you tell us about the consultation then that you carried out with the different relevant people? Why is their comments not included in the reports?
We haven't carried out the consultation yet, Councillor Abdul. The request is to amend or go out to consultation.
Okay, thank you for that.
That is, sorry, Councillor Abdul, that is on point 2 of the recommendation, that would go out to consultation. Okay.
Okay, thanks, Chair.
Thank you. Councillor Wood.
Thank you, Chair. I've got a slight reservation to this. I can see where you're going with it. Modern vehicles are obviously of a very high standard. But at what point do you actually sort of say if somebody comes along with a really low mileage 20, 15 or 20-year-old vehicle? You haven't recommended to me that maybe we should look at either a 7 or a 10-year cutoff. Now I know that you know that modern vehicles now are crash tested. They have crash ratings and so on and so forth. And the more modern they are, the safer they are, basically. Yeah. Well, now we're carrying the public, and we're carrying, you know, we are taxi providers, and we're trying to ensure that they're as safe as possible. So where's the assurance that an old vehicle will not come forwards? And I would have thought officers would have been recommended another either mileage or so many years old. As Keith was alluded to there, it's not just about the year, and it can be mileage, and it can be, you know, different models of different ratings.
I think without going into intricacies of whether mileage is relevant to maintenance, because a vehicle can have an extremely high mileage and be extremely well maintained, and vice versa. You can have a really high mileage and not be maintained. The question is, we have a policy that says any vehicle over 5 years old must come to committee. The exception being, if it's an accessible vehicle, it will be checked once by an officer who is a qualified inspector, and then COC'd. We're only extending the 5-year period for accessible vehicles upon inspection.
Okay.
Are you clear on that, Councillor Wood? Don't look like.
Yes, yes, no, because your 5-year limit now, isn't it? Anything below 5 years acceptable, above 5 years not acceptable. Now you're saying above 5 years we can look at it, and then if he gets to see it, we're happy, it goes for COC, and they're happy, it's deemed to be a licensed vehicle. Yeah,
that's correct. Yes, if it's an accessible vehicle, and a qualified officer who is a qualified inspector looks at that vehicle and says it's suitable to go for a COC, then it will go for a COC, and if it passes that COC, which is an MOT plus other tests, then it will go on to fleet. If there's any dispute in that process, it will come to the licensing committee.
okay, I'd still be
So
more
in fact, it gets
if there's an age limit to the vehicle. So, you know, if you want to extend the age limit because of vehicles you think,
that could be part of the consultation if members choose to go out to consultation.
yeah, I think we need to add that in, because, you know, you can, as I said before, you can have really good vehicles that don't have any mileage, 15, 20 years old, but it doesn't make sure, you know, they're not as safe, you know, ABS, airbags, so on and so forth. We don't look at all that into, as you said before.
I'm not one of those qualified officers, so I won't be inspecting the vehicles. I have qualified officers who do that inspection, so I can't comment on that.
I think, Councillor Wood, it needs to be pointed out that this is the consultation, they're going out to consultation. Now, I think I'm right in saying that Councillor Abdul wanted clarification on point 5.1.
Yes,
that consultation that's been carried out with those various people. Is that what you wanted to know?
Yes, because I was flipping from my Goodreaders to the Zoom. And that's what I read on page 13, 5.1, where it says consultation has been carried out, you know.
I can clarify. Sorry, Councillor Abdul. I'll wait.
That's clarity on that.
Yeah, 5.1 is engagement and consultation with regard to the report. I write the reports and submit them to those people in order for them to come to the licensing committee. I don't submit a report to committee without consulting with my head of service, my cabinet member, our legal team, and the public space man and the public protection manager. That's not consultation with the public. That is just to make sure everything in the report that you're receiving is correct.
Okay, so there's no consultation on their view on that report.
There is consultation with the relevant officers in our hierarchy, but one of the recommendations is that members allow us to go out to consultation to the trade.
Okay. That's all. Like I said, my observation was that, or my understanding of that 5.1 is that they were invited to make comments. But they were, so Chair, clearly you haven't made any comment on that.
Well, no, I can come in there. I was quite happy for the report to go out to consultation.
Yeah.
And that's it. Okay.
Yeah.
I didn't make any other decision whatsoever. And I think that goes for the rest as well.
Yeah.
Okay. We accepted the report and we presented to this committee. Is that clear?
It's just unlike any other committee, when the local members are asked to comment on it, we make a comment on different committees. So maybe the license is a bit different, Chair.
Okay, thank you. I can
Thank
see
you.
councillor Eales, have you got your hand up as well?
Thank you, Chair. It's only a quick question really for John. Obviously this, something has brought this request to the members. Is there something, what is the information that officers have felt this comes to committee? Is there a reason it came because not enough accessible vehicles, or is it to speed the process up, or what was the reason the request has come in? Is it because there's not enough newer vehicles coming in for licensing, or is it driven by price, or I don't know, what is the reason?
Well, as officers and members, we can't take in consideration the cost of an application or the cost of a vehicle. That's for the business operator in their own right. But there was a recent report by Leonard Cheshire, which is a background paper in another one of the reports today, in that council should offer the ability to allow for more accessible vehicles. And as it says in the report, this is the first step, or one of the first processes in allowing our procedures and processes to get more accessible vehicles onto our fleet. At the minute, every single vehicle over the age of 5 years old comes directly to members, and there may be reluctance for people to do that. If there's an officer present in that process, then a discussion can be had whether that's vehicle suitable or not, but it doesn't change the safety parameters or the requirement for that vehicle to be fit and proper. It just means that an officer can give appropriate guidance, inspect the vehicle before it goes to a COC. It will help increase the numbers without a doubt. And I think it does say that within the report. It says that the amendment works towards enabling all people in Conway to fulfil their potential, regardless of their background and circumstances. So we should be moving towards having more accessible vehicles. And there's lots of reports and consultation and documents with regard to that. This is a way of making it easier, but without reducing the safety.
Yeah, that's fine. I understand that. I wasn't questioning the safety and whatever of the vehicles at this point. I was just wondering, because Conway has quite a high proportion anyway, compared to some of the councils of accessible vehicles, you see. So I was just wondering whether there was an abnormally high request from owners of such vehicles that has driven this request. But if it was just driven by Leonard Cheshire, then that's fine. I do agree with the report from Leonard Cheshire and the request for more vehicles, and I would expect that vehicles under 5 years old does limit the amount of vehicles that do come onto taxi fleets. So opening up the age gap, I can understand that it will do increase the amount of vehicles out there. But I also think as well from Councillor Andrew is that maybe if it goes to consultation that there is an age limit, a provisional age limit for vehicles, because as said, even if it's got a new engine or whatever, the rest of the car is still done 100,000 miles. You know, so it's wear and tear on a vehicle. So I'd be happy to support going out to consultation for this.
Part of the consultation would be to have an extended age period outside the 5-year period. So you would look at 10 years, and anything under 5 years would still go to committee. Anything between 5 and 10 years, I'm just using 10 years as an example, would fall within this process.
Yeah, happy, Councillor Eales.
Yes, yeah. Sorry,
Thank
I
you.
was on mute, sorry.
Councillor Allen.
Yeah, are you making a proposal, Councillor Eales?
Yes, I'm happy to propose that.
Okay, I'm happy to second it on the basis of what you were discussing and what I've heard in the meeting today. I think Councillor Wood alluded to it. Cars are built to a totally different standard these days. Example, mine's 12 years old, 120,000 miles. It's got airbags, ABS. It's never failed an MOT. So I think we should be extending this now. The build quality is so much better. Our officers will have the discretion to say whether it goes forward or not. I think we have to trust our officers as well. And there is a fallback with the the later inspection. So happy to second that, Keith.
Thanks. Thank you, Councillor Allen, and I don't think anybody else has got any questions. So we'll put it to the vote, please, and you are voting for. Can I ask you, Catherine, please, to direct me to where we are? 3, 2, 1.
With the additional points that have been raised.
Okay. Okay, with the additional, so we're voting on recommendation 2-1. Members consider the content of the report and the information supplied by officers, etc., etc. So could we vote accordingly, please? Those in favour? Vote consultation, yeah.
Just there's 2 bullet points, yeah?
Yes,
Yeah, to go out to consultation. So, yes,
Yeah,
subject
okay.
to the points raised. Yeah. The officers, yeah.
are you happy? Anybody against? Any abstentions? Motion carried. Thank you very much. Diolch yn fawr. We'll move to the next item, which is item 6.3, to consider a request from officers to allow applications for a multi-zone Hackney carriage driver's licence. This again to be presented by John Donnelly, Principal Trading Standards and Licensing Officer. Keeping you busy tonight, John?
I'm busy all the time, Chair. Thank you very much. There's a request for members to determine a request from officers to allow the introduction of a multi-zone Hackney carriage licence. At present, Hackney carriage drivers are only authorised to apply or stand for hire in the applied for granted Hackney carriage zone. The current zones are Conway Rural, Colwyn and Llandudno. The recommendation is members may allow applications for a multi-zone licence alongside each of the present single zone licences and allow present licences to apply for a multi-zone licence as detailed in 3.5 below. Or members may make all new applications multi-zone licences and allow present licence holders to apply for a multi-zone licence as detailed in 3.5. Members may take no action and continue with the present regime. Currently, Hackney carriage drivers may apply to drive in a single zone. The current cost of an application is £382. If they wish to drive a Hackney carriage in a different zone, they must apply separately, and this would make the total cost for a driver for all 3 zones £1,146. Officers are requesting whether members would consider allow applications for a multi-zone licence, which would have an extended knowledge test and allow Hackney carriage to drive a Hackney carriage in all Hackney carriage drivers to drive a Hackney carriage in all 3 zones. The total cost of the new multi-zone licence for new applicants would be £407 based on the additional time required for a knowledge test covering all 3 zones. Officers would continue to offer a single zone licence if requested. If members determine all present Hackney carriage drivers could be moved to a multi-zone licence for a one-off application fee of £62, which would require them pass an extended test along with the processing and issuing of a new licence and ID card. This application will be made available to all current drivers for a period of 3 months from the date of implementation. Thank you, Chair.
Thank you, John. Anybody want to open the debate, ask questions? Councillor Andrew.
It's quite a departure, isn't it, going from £1,146 down to 400 odd? Is this in alignment with, is it happening throughout Wales, or is this, where's this guidance coming from, this multi?
Where we have zones, then you can't transfer a driver from a zone to a zone. You have to surrender that license and apply for another one, or have 2 separate licenses for 2 separate zones. We do occasionally get asked for a transfer, and we have to say, sorry, you have to make a new application for that zone, and it's a complete new application. So having the option of being able to say to drivers, for this one-off fee and this one, you can drive with a different license in all 3 zones. So you can drive a Hackney in Colwyn, you can drive a Hackney in the Rural, and you can drive a Hackney in Llandudno. So drivers can jump from vehicle to vehicle, but we still operate zones because that's a different question in its own right. It just means that it allows flexibility within the workforce.
And on that case, I'm quite happy to propose that as new.
Thank you, Councillor Andrew. Anybody else? Second, Councillor Hunter. I can't see any more questions. Have we got? Oh, Councillor Hughes.
Thank you, Chair. I was just going to second Councillor Andrew. I think this is quite forward thinking and I welcome this as well.
Okay. Anybody else? No, I'll put it to the vote then, please. Catherine, where are we?
Is it the first 2 points? Yeah, so this is what you need to resolve, whether it's allowing the applications a lot for.
Thank you. Just
My
in case
voice.
people don't know, Catherine's our solicitor, okay?
Sorry.
She's not somebody I'd picked on the notes.
Sorry, apologies. My voice isn't great tonight either, hence the coughing. So members, you just need to be clear whether you are allowing applications for a multi-zone license alongside each of the present single zone licenses and allow the present license holders to apply for a multi-zone license as Mr. Donnelly's outlined, or are you proposing that we make all new applications a multi-zone license only and allow the present license holders who have a single zone license to apply for a multi-zone license as well, or obviously take no action? But your proposal, Councillor Wood, is along the lines of the first two, but it just needs to be clear which one. If please, if it's allowing applications for a multi-zone license alongside an application for a single zone license as well, or are you suggesting that making all new applications a multi-zone license? And obviously the present single zone license holders would have to apply or have the option to apply for a multi-zone.
Are we happy with that? Do you
So it
Sorry,
would be a
Brother
second
Catch.
point then, wouldn't it? Make all new applications, multi-zone license, and allow present license holders
to
to
apply?
apply for multi-zone license as detailed in 3.5,
Yeah.
which is £62, isn't it? Yeah.
For the present license holders. isn't it?
There's no, that's not gonna cause a problem for any other drivers, is it?
It's for Hackney Carriage drivers. It means that if they already hold, they have they can continue until their present license expires, but anything new
Yeah.
will be a new multi-zone license. And if the present licenses want to be multi-zone, they pay a fee of £62 and we'll issue them with a multi-zone license, and that will automatically renew as a multi-zone license.
Okay, but it's got a 3-year implementation period,
Sorry.
3 months implementation.
Yeah, because if we leave it unlimited, we'll have a driver come to us next week and then another driver to come to us in 2 years' time.
Okay,
So they need to make the application within that time for it to transfer.
all right.
Councillor Wood, are you happy to
Yeah, no, I'm happy with
propose
that, that's
point
satisfied.
2 then, yeah?
Yeah.
Make all applications. And Councillor Keith, are you happy to second that? Or was it Councillor Allen who did that? Okay.
I think it may have been
Allen.
Councillor Allen, yeah.
Yeah, okay, thank you. I keep looking backwards and forwards. Anyway, whoever, we have a seconder. Can we have a vote, please? All those in favour? All those against? Abstentions? Thank you. The vote is carried. Just to let you know, we're just waiting for Mr. Foster to come back, one of the applicants tonight. So he won't be long. All right, thank you, Mr Foster. We're ready to go with item 6.4. Determination of a private hire vehicle licence, new application. To be presented again by John Donnelly, Principal Trading Standards and Licences Officer, and it's on pages 18 to 23 of your pack. Thank you, Mr Donnelly.
Thank you, Chair. The application is for members to determine application with regard to private hire vehicle licence submitted by Stephen Foster for a Mercedes-Benz C250 AMG registered in 2015. Officers were unable to grant the application on the grounds that the proposed vehicle does not meet Conwy County Borough Council's private hire condition Appendix A. All vehicles must be under 5 years old from the date of first registration and of subsequent licence being exceptionally good mechanical and bodily and interior and exterior condition. Members may grant the application, refuse the application. Section 48(1) and 2 of the Local Government Miscellaneous Provisions Act 1976 allows for a district council to impose conditions in order to satisfy itself that a vehicle is suitable to be used as a private hire vehicle. The vehicle is available for members to inspect, but images and all the information is available at Appendix A. If a member is determined to grant the application, there is potential that the applicant proposes to submit a further application to use the vehicle for executive hire. That is not a matter for this committee this evening, but it may be mentioned by the applicant. With no effect on existing policy, as members may determine each application on its own merit. Chair, the applicant is here if you wish to ask any questions, and the vehicle is available should you wish to see it.
Thank you. Before we get to that, I'm going to ask Mr Foster if you'd like to make a presentation, please.
I certainly would. I'm green to all this private hire Hackney licence industry. I've only had my private hire licence badge for 10 months. So I was going to start off this page here, but I'm going to start with this page. I'm shocked that no one's mentioned about green fuel at all. I've driven for 3 companies now, 2. Some of the cars, it felt like and it sounded like and it smelled like they're running on coal. It's shocking. So no one's mentioned about clean energy. So the vehicle that I'm proposing is £35 a year to tax because it's blue tech. The miles per gallon is 12 pence a mile. The tyres are eco-friendly and the car's set up to be eco-friendly. So no one's mentioned that, which I'm a little bit concerned about. The other thing that I've signed up for and got support from the Welsh Government is the Green Growth Pledge that pledges that you will run your business the greenest way you possibly can. So I'm shocked that everybody's saying about the cars have got to be right and all that sort of stuff, but there are not reliable, roadworthy, private hire Hackney cars out there right now. So what I'm trying to do is probably up the game with what can be available in Llandudno. I don't want to have a private hire license. I just want an executive plate put on the vehicle. My car is serviced by Mercedes-Benz. It's got a contract on it. Every time it has a service, they inspect it underneath and give you a video, what needs changing, what the body's like underneath, the brakes, the bushes, the suspension, the exhaust and everything. So I've got a very high standard and, you know, I think it's important when you are transporting people about, it's about safety. So yeah, all I just want to do is for the committee to look at my car and to see the high standard it is and trying to see what I'm trying to do regarding the green energy side of things. And as I said, I've driven for 10 months now, and some of the cars that are on the road, and some of them are small businesses, you know, privately owned people that drive their taxis, is a pretty poor standard. And I suppose after 11 months or 10 months of driving, I probably met 50,000 different people, and they expect much more from the taxi service or executive service in this area, because there's so many beautiful things to see. There is a market for someone who wants to hire a car and a driver for 5 hours, 5 days. So that's the market I'm trying to approach. And yeah, I'm happy for anybody to look at my car that's outside.
Thank you very much for that, Mr. Foster. Yeah, I'm sorry that nobody did mention the green fuel, but I'm sure it was in people's minds anyway. We have a dilemma here now because there are 2 people on Zoom, okay? They can't obviously see the car. So I'm going to ask the committee some kind of compromise. Those who are present here can go and see the car. Those on Zoom can ask any questions, but they cannot vote in the deliberations after because they haven't seen the car. I'm going to ask my committee if that is acceptable to them. We can vote on that first. And of course, those are Abdul and Keith. Is that acceptable to you?
Yeah, Chair, we was going to delegate you to be our eyes and expertise.
Thank you very
on that.
much. Thank you, Councillor Abdul. But you understand that you won't be able to vote
No,
afterwards.
No, but
you can ask questions. You can ask questions.
Yeah,
we leave
look,
the chair-
just to answer Mr. Foster's, I have read his vehicle details in great details and everything he says with green and everything. I was impressed just to so that for his observation, we have read the report and we are impressed by it. And the reason we couldn't ask any others, because he is also over 5 years, we need to consider. So, yeah, I'm not sure if we, on your recommendation, if you visually have seen it and if you say it's right, if we're not allowed to vote, then we won't participate. I'm happy with that. I don't know about Councillor Keith.
If I may,
Thank you, Councillor Abdul.
if I may, Chair, for
Yes, you may.
clarification, there is no restriction on the type of fuel that any private hire vehicle or Hackney carriage can use. There never has been in Conway, and all the vehicles that operate in Conway pass the Ministry of Transport emissions tests. So they do meet the requirements of the law.
Thank you. Would you like to go out and see the car now?
I'd like to ask a question, please, Chair.
Oh, yeah, of course you can.
I'm sorry, I was brought up with motorbikes. So can somebody or the operator explain what a green fuel is? Obviously, it's not hybrid because it's an 8-year-old vehicle. What size engine it is, and is it ethanol only, or are you using gas?
Okay, the fuel that I use is V-Power Shell diesel fuel. So what that does is makes the engine work more efficiently, giving more miles per gallon. It has less wear on the engine. So you can imagine the cost over a long period of time are quite a lot. So if you look after that car by putting the right fuel in it, it extends its life. If you extend its life, it's cheaper. I'm not buying 3 cars. I'm only buying one that lasts that length of time. The tires are on it. They are Pirelli tires, which are called Pirelli gel. So they're more economical, the way they're put together and how long they last. What was the other question you asked me for?
It's just when you said about eco, you talked about eco. So it's a diesel car. What size engine?
It's a 2.1 diesel engine in it.
So it's 2.1 diesel engine, and it's not using ethanol. It's not using vegetable-based fuel. It's using diesel.
What I'm trying
green
to
is green is.
Yeah.
Green is.
I suppose the tax that I pay per year on it is the sort of one that says how green it is. Now it's £35 a year to tax, and I don't think there's many people that can put their hand up and saying their car or any vehicle is under £35 a year to tax. So that is obviously put there to guidance on the emissions. So it's saying that car is ultra efficient. So it's blue tech, so it uses AdBlue, so that puts a fine mist on the exhaust fumes that go out the back. So I don't think that you could get much greener car. It has, I always got it in eco mode, which obviously changes the gears quicker. It just makes the car run more efficiently.
Well, since you brought the car here, I think it's only like that we're going to have a look at it. 5 minutes, please. That's all we need. And we'll be back.
So, Chair, can I just remind members not to discuss the matter or ask any questions outside of the chamber and wait until we're back in to ask any questions from the applicant? Thank you.
Yeah, we're just waiting for Mr. Foster to lock his car up and come back, boys. Okay. Thank you, Abdul. Thank you, Keith. Thank you very much. And thank you for bringing the car for us to have a look at. I will open it to debate again now if anybody has any questions. Any questions of upstairs? Yes, Councillor Eales.
Yeah, can I just clarify for Mr. Foster's comments that in relation to diesel engine and the tax duty, that there is a number of cars that are only £35 a year road tax. My wife's diesel car is, and it does use AdBlue. So it's a 2014 model that is 1.6 turbo diesel, but it uses AdBlue, and also it's only £35 a year tax. So the car is not unique in that sense in regard to emissions and fuel efficiency. And the tyres also, there's a wide array of tyres available on the market that can reduce noise, reduce fuel consumption. But I understand Mr. Foster has got these on his car, and to have those emissions figures on an engine that size is pretty good. So I'm not disputing his car either, you know, but I'm just saying that it's not unique for £35 a year tax or AdBlue as well. So I know I can't take a lot of part in the debate and what have you, but I just wanted to clarify that as well.
You want to press the microphone?
Yep.
That's it. You can hear you then.
So regarding the £35 a year tax, it was £30. They just put it up to £35. Regarding the tyres, so that car is quite different to most cars because the tyres on the back are bigger than the ones on the front. So it's quite complex because of the size of the wheels that are on the car. But I wasn't saying it's a special car. The point that I was trying to make, that I've been driving taxis for 10-11 months, and the cars that I've been driving haven't been that efficient. So all I was making the point is my car's a lot efficient than the ones I have been driving.
Okay,
thank you very much. All right, Councillor Eales, happy? Any other questions? Harry?
Yeah, thanks, Chairman. I've got a couple of questions. I think one probably for Mr. Foster and one perhaps for Mr. Donnelly, as the licensing officer, if he's able to answer it. I'm just looking at so my first question, I'm looking at Appendix C, which I'm assuming you've produced. It gives details of the vehicle, and there's the comment in it that the vehicle's in showroom condition both outside and inside. Now we've seen with the vehicle, certainly cosmetically it looks in good condition. I'm no engineer myself. I'm not qualified to say whether or not it is in suitable condition. I'm conscious we obviously have an age restriction within the policy, and I'm assuming that exists to give us a guide as to whether or not the vehicle will be in good condition. Obviously, vehicles can be maintained, but the more they're used, which you would assume would probably follow the age of the vehicle, obviously there will be an amount of wear and tear. And I'm conscious the appendix we've got has put the mileage at June this year, so around a month ago, at just under 71,000 miles. I would have thought if you were to work on the basis of a normal car would do about 12,000 miles a year, would it, how does that sit with saying it's in showroom condition if I were trying to think of it as a 5-year-old vehicle? What I'm trying to do here is see, to my mind, are there any reasons to look at departing from a 5-year part of the policy? I'm trying to think, is it sensible to look at mileage and wear for vehicle? And it would certainly, in terms of mileage, to me, appear to be an older than 5-year vehicle, if that makes sense. I don't know if I'm articulating that very well. So I'd just be interested to understand how you'd reconcile the mileage with the suggestion at showroom quality. I hope I haven't made that too complex.
The showroom condition. I mean, no car, used car showroom condition, but if I was selling you the car,
Yep.
I would say, listen, for the age that it's in showroom condition, I look after it. It goes down to Stockport, Mercedes-Benz for a service, it's on a service contract. The car tells me and tells them when it needs a service. I don't say, oh, it needs a service. It's automatically done. I've had experience of driving taxis in this area. And on my third company, and I know he's here, but not just saying it, is completely different. And the previous two, average miles on a car, 178,000 on a 14-year number 14 plate. I mean, that's ridiculous. So all I'm trying to do is saying, look, you could have a brand new car and not in as good condition as that. So I'm ticking all the boxes, what I need to do, but most importantly, when I'm carrying passengers, I want to make sure they're safe. And that's why I left Interlink and Alliance to go to Premier, because I didn't feel safe driving those taxis with those people in it.
Okay, thank you for that. If I can just come to my second question, which in all fairness, I think Mr. Foster touched on it, but I'll just put the point to Mr. Donnelly to see if he's able to share any observations. Normal annual mileage for taxi. Now, I'm sure I've read before in the past it can be around 40 to 45,000 miles, but as someone who is more intimately involved with the taxi trade than I am, what would be the rough annual mileage?
I think the consideration with regard to mileage, whether it's relevant or not, is for members to determine. But the mileage of a vehicle is not determined, does not show the maintenance of that vehicle. It's more important that the vehicle is regularly maintained than it is. Vehicles can go for hundreds of thousands of miles and still be in immaculate condition. They could have had engine changes, suspension changes. And from our point of view, as officers and as the licensing authority, the vehicles go in for a COC test, who are independent testing stations, who carry out the Ministry of Transport test, which includes emission levels. The mileage of the vehicle, although a consideration, is not a matter of whether the vehicle is maintained. So it's sometimes easy to get hung up on a vehicle with lots of miles, but that doesn't say whether that vehicle has been maintained or not. With regards to the average for a taxi or a private hire vehicle, there is no. Some may do a couple of hundred a month, some may do 10,000 a month. It depends on the business operation.
Okay, could I just respond to one point Mr. Donnelly did just make there? So I totally appreciate the point that obviously mileage off a vehicle doesn't necessarily correlate to how well it's maintained. Of course, you can have a vehicle that's done many miles, but is frequently maintained and is of a safe and acceptable standard. But surely age then wouldn't correlate to how well a vehicle has been maintained and how safe it is, would it?
Age does potentially correlate, and that's why we have the request that vehicles come to this committee when they're over 5 years old. It used to be no limit. Members determined that they would like to look at vehicles and see vehicles to ensure our standards are kept up to date. And at its present, only new vehicles. The COC testing stations and the vehicles are tested twice annually, which is more than a normal car. So those emission tests are carried out twice annually. It must also be noted that taxis, and I'll use the generic word taxis for private hire, are exempt from ULEV and LEV, so they can enter ULEV zones and LEV zones because they are regularly tested and for their emissions. And we submit a list every month of all vehicles. So if we're talking about types of fuel, there's never been a limit on the type of fuel that you can use in Conway. Emissions are tested to the Ministry of Transport test. So all of our vehicles do meet that specification. The mileage is a matter for the individual vehicle. We do not request maintenance schedules at this moment in time, but UK or Welsh Government may bring that forward at a later date.
Okay, thank you.
One more thing. I mean, that car, it might be 2015, but it's got an awful lot of tech on it. So that car will park itself. It also, if there's a vehicle that is stopping very, very quickly in front of you, it will automatically bring the car to a standstill. So it's a lot safer than any of the cars I've been driving. So I could go on about all the stuff that it can do. So don't let the age deceive you. You know, it's got everything on it.
Thank you. Any other questions? Right. Yes, Keith, Councillor Keith.
Thank you, Chair. It's only in response to Councillor Harry's comments really about the age or the mileage and the average mileage. An engine, as it's been driven, it creates carbon in the engine, which is then in the oil. So regular servicing does make a difference to the life of the engine because of the carbon buildup in the oil. So when manufacturers come out with their servicing schedule guidelines, it is for the engine to try and get the optimum life out of an engine. I have seen engines that are literally 30-odd thousand miles that haven't been serviced, that have then failed because of the carbon in the oil has blocked oil ways or has caused a turbo failure. So it does make a difference with regard to servicing of an engine, that you do carry it out within the manufacturer guidelines, which obviously this car has. If it's got full Mercedes servicing, then obviously it has had the oil changes. But the other side of the coin is that if you don't have it serviced, then you're looking at a premature wear on an engine, which then you'll get the fumes or whatever, you know. So it is important on the servicing of a vehicle.
Thank you for that, Councillor Eales. So we have yes, Councillor Sharon.
Thank you. Thank you. Well, it's a very handsome car, Mr. Foster. My question is, the car is 8 years old. Should we, as a committee, be considering if we should put a cut-off point on how long we would allow a private car to be used for? Or at what age would we say, no, we won't consider it anymore?
There is the question to be answered, because there, as Mr. Donnelly said, there never used to be a cap. But we'll go back to John for the answer, please.
I think the decision is based on the policies we have now. So members must make the determination what we have now, not what we potentially might have in the future. We've already discussed potential consultation with regards to age. With the 5G limit and accessible vehicles, we can extend that consultation to other vehicles if members wish. So we can private hire vehicles and extend that as well as accessible vehicles, or members can stay as they are. I can't assist in that question because the policy is quite clear now that members must make the determination based on the vehicle that they've got in front of them now.
Just to clarify the policy as it currently stands is vehicles should not be more than 5 years old, but a person can bring it for inspection for us to make a judgment.
Yeah, officers cannot grant the license to a vehicle that is over 5 years old. Officers only have the delegated power to grant a license to anything that falls within policy.
Okay, Councillor. Thank you. Right, I'm going to bring the debate to an end. We are now going into private session. So therefore, if you can leave, and the gallery as well, please, and the officers. But solicitor and my
live stream.
yeah, could you put okay.
I'm not sure what.
Where do we know? To stop it. Well, Jane went in there and pressed the button. That's all I know.
Cyfieithu, you can go.
Thank you.
Councillor Eales and Councillor Abdul, we cannot pause live stream. So what we're going to do, we're going to go to the anteroom. You can't vote anyway, so but will you please stay there for the next item? Yeah, don't sulk, Keith. Well, thank you very much, Mr. Foster, for staying. We've deliberated on this. We've taken a great deal of things into consideration. We have decided to grant the application because we are very satisfied that the condition of the vehicle is good enough to be carry on. You will get a written explanation, of course, but we would like to draw your attention that the vehicle still has to go through testing, has to be maintained, of course, and we must draw the attention to the reasonably low mileage that you have told that you have, and we are satisfied, therefore, that it is in good enough condition to carry on, to be a private hire. Okay. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much.
And you'll have this in writing, by the way.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you very much indeed. There you go. We'll carry on with the meeting now. And the last item, item 5. Is John here? Oh, yes. Determination of a Hackney carriage licence, new application. And this is also to be presented by Mr. John Donnelly, the Principal Trading Standards and Licensing Officer. You'll find this on pages 24 to 70 on your agenda pack. And I understand that the applicant is in attendance and would like to say a few words after. I'll come to you then, Mr. O'Neill. Okay, thank you. John.
Thank you, Chair. The report is for members to determine the application with regard to a Hackney carriage licence submitted by Premier Motors Group North Wales Limited for the Llandudno zone. Officers were unable to grant the application as the proposed vehicle does not meet Conway's Vehicle Specification Policy Appendix A for Hackney carriages accessibility. All applications for the grant of a licence must relate to a vehicle which is wheelchair accessible. The vehicle must also be side loading. Members may grant the application, refuse the application. Section 47(1 of the Local Government Miscellaneous Provisions Act 1976 allows for a district council to attach to the grant of a licence of a Hackney carriage such conditions as the district council may consider reasonably necessary. The vehicle does fall within Conway private hire conditions, which will allow the vehicle to be licensed as a Conway private hire vehicle should an application be made. The vehicle is available for members, private vehicles for disabled people. Access for all Hackney carriage works towards enabling all people of Conway to fulfil their potential regardless of their background or circumstances. No effect on existing policy, as members may determine each application on its own merit. Thank you, Chair.
Thank you, Mr. Donnelly. I'm going to ask Mr. O'Neill now if you'd like to make a presentation, please. If you just speak into the microphone so they can hear you upstairs on Zoom. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. If I could give you a bit of background, obviously, to the application, I think it would be very important. We obviously are the Premier Group North Wales Limited. We operate a number of vehicles within the Gwynedd area. We operate a number of vehicles in Anglesey, and recently, for the last 12 weeks, we've been operational within Conway. We now have, I believe, just give you the exact number, 6 vehicles within the county, which are all licensed as private hire vehicles. In respect of the workflow, we have come to the area and put out quite a big advertising campaign and pick up an awful lot of work. We're a little bit unique to a lot of taxis that operate within the UK, and we are members of the Private Hire Association. We've taken some sort of guidance and we've had good communication with them. And when I say unique by the fact that our drivers are employees of the company. They're not working on a commission basis. They're not working on a rental or anything else. So effectively, we need to be out there ensuring that there's work for them drivers and for the future build of the company. The plan for the group is to establish ourselves within the area over 12 months with a view, the business plan says within 2 years, we will have 35 cars operational within the county from Llanfyfechan up to Old Colwyn Bay area. That's the whole plan. In respect of Hackney carriages and why we think it's important for a Hackney carriage, there is times within the day where we get quiet periods and our private hire vehicles simply can't go on the ranks. They can't go on the ranks, they can't pick up the work that is there, be it the local or the tourist in the area that uses them taxi ranks. I look at the number of WAV vehicles, wheelchair accessible vehicles within the areas, and I made FOI requests to local authorities for them. I believe they're in your pack on page 28. In respect of the number of Hackney carriages within the county, there's 95, of which 17 being WAV vehicles. Close, I would say, to 20%. In terms of the other areas, they're all less numbers of WAV vehicles. And I understand that Conway has a high population of tourists that come into the area as well, and the disability need. However, years ago, there was tourists always coming to Llandudno. There wasn't this requirement to ensure that every new Hackney carriage was wheelchair accessible. This council changed the policy or the procedure as it is for everyone to be wheelchair accessible. I understand from the initial report, we look at the Leonard Cheshire report. And if I could ask members just to cast their eyes on the front page of the report and the drive-in change and the policy within Conway for a new accessible vehicle is accessible and side loading. Yet, I don't know if members have got the actual report or if I can just hold it up. The first page is a vehicle being loaded from the rear. If I could ask you kindly just to turn to page 6 of that report, and one of the key recommendations is incentives. And number 1, financial incentive schemes should be introduced for taxi and private hire companies to cover some of the upfront costs of purchasing sector compliant vehicles. I'm not here asking Conway Council to fund me. What I'm asking you to do is look at that report, and that's what the recommendation is. What I don't want to do is have any decision based on picking out little bits of information when there's clearly some recommendations within that report. A Hackney carriage, this local authority has recently licensed 6 cars of another company. Them vehicles are in the region of £20,000. They've hackneyed them on the basis that they were previously, they've swapped them over from other vehicles. Fine, £20,000. But to go out and buy a wheelchair accessible vehicle, you're in excess of £40,000. Side loading, wheelchair accessible. I look at the corporate plan of this council. And if I can ask you to turn to page 42 of that corporate plan, through our climate change programme, we will work to carbon net zero organisation by 2030. You may also be aware of the declaration, the climate declaration, that this council unanimously in full council agreed. The vehicle that I'm trying to apply for a Hackney, albeit is not wheelchair accessible, it is full electric, zero emissions from the vehicle. It falls within the age. Unfortunately, it doesn't fall in the basis that it has accessible for wheelchairs. We applied to come to Conway as a private hire operator. This authority could have, at that time, set conditions to our private hire licence. They didn't do so. They could have said that 1 in 10, 1 in 5, 1 in 20 of your vehicles needs to be disability access or wheelchair accessible. They didn't do so. We've had private hire vehicles. We're committed to putting wheelchair accessible vehicles within the fleet, and we will undertake that work. One of the points that I make is wheelchair accessible vehicles tend to look bigger than a sort of saloon vehicle. on a standard taxi rank, people will think that them wheelchair accessible vehicles cost more. People are stigmatized. They don't want to get in that vehicle. Yeah, I understand there is a need for it, and we're happy to supply wheelchair accessible vehicles within our whole fleet. This one in particular isn't, and we're looking to put that on. This local authority, as far as I'm concerned, changed the policy. They changed the policy because they wanted to do something for the disability rights. What they did do was break a nut with a sledgehammer. You have within your own county 132 play parks. Not every one of them is accessible for people of disabled. In fact, there's only 8. That's through an FOI request made by your own, or made to your own authority and answered by Owen within that department. So in terms of every vehicle has to be, I think it's harsh for this authority to put that out to us. Disability in Conway. 9.2% of residents within the county of Conway have a disability. Not necessarily means that they're in a wheelchair, has a disability. This is a decrease from 10.4 in the last survey done in 2011. Wheelchair side loading. Are your ranks suitable for wheelchair side loading? Every single one. I beg to think not. The climate declaration, Mr. Chairman and members, is important to us. We're trying to bring a fleet of full electric vehicles to this area. I'm sure the rifle officers will understand. They've seen work going on at our offices. We've taken the fences down. We're installing electric charge points. All the vehicles that are operating here under license from Conway, with the exception of one minibus, are either hybrid, are full hybrid vehicles, and the new one is electric. The plan is to continue on that. We want to bring the Hackneys, and what we want to do, or we want to apply for the Hackney, is because the extra work is needed. The extra work is needed for us to continue to employ more people within the county. It's without a doubt, you look at the numbers, 95 Hackney carriages, 17 WAV vehicles. It's a closed shop. Can this authority say that they're being fair by no further allowing a operator to put a Hackney carriage on the rank unless it's a wheelchair accessible vehicle at extreme cost? The old grandfather rights, the people who have currently got Hackneys can change their vehicle and put another car on without it being wheelchair accessible. Is that fair? I ask you to refer to your constitution, part 1 of your constitution. We'll turn to the issue of fairness, and I ask you to treat this application with that fairness. I also ask you to treat it within its own merit. I understand there's been an application earlier from another colleague of ours who's made one for age of vehicle. This age of vehicle is well within date. It just has no wheelchair accessible. That's all I've got, Mr. Chairman, unless anybody's got any further questions.
Thank you very much, Mr. O'Neill. I'm going to ask the committee members now if they have any questions, please.
John, under the 2022 Disabled Act or Disability Act, does grandfather rights transfer an old taxi and old Hackney license that had disabled access to front and back? Does that have to carry on? Surely.
That's a matter of policy, and members can change that as they wish. There's no requirement for consultation on the grandfather right. It was a decision by members to allow grandfather rights for the individual to transfer vehicles over. So that is a matter for members. At the moment, policy does allow transfer of vehicles. If you've already got the existing vehicles, yes, but no new vehicles.
Not new vehicles.
Not new vehicles, no.
So existing vehicles
can be transferred over as long as those vehicles continue to pass the COC and stay in immaculate, the normal condition as we've already discussed previously in the hearing.
So they don't have to be wheelchair friendly. It's just they were existing vehicles
And-
before the 2022 Act.
And then they can continue to be.
And
Yes.
anybody who comes here should have a disabled.
And our
Wow.
policy is clear on our website that any new Hackney carriage must be wheelchair accessible.
Thank you.
Any other questions? I have a question, Mr. O'Neill. Oh, sorry. Oh, you can go first. Go on,
Yeah, thank you.
Councillor Keith.
Sorry, Chair. Yeah, I was just trying to clarify which vehicle Mr. O'Neill is asking to change to a Hackney, because the attachment gives a number of vehicles on the pictures.
Thank you, Councillor. I wasn't sure that the application was being submitted or not by the officer. It is an MG5 full electric vehicle.
Right. Okay. Thank you.
I've just been reminded, you've brought the vehicle with you, Mr. O'Neill. It's only fair that we go and have a look at it. The same conditions apply to the previous applicant, that those who can't see it can take part in the debate, but won't be able to vote. Are you happy with that, committee? Yes?
Mr. Chairman, can I just make a point on that if I can, please? I do believe, obviously, we were asked to furnish the vehicle, or we could furnish the vehicle if we wanted to. The vehicle is outside, and rightfully any member, I haven't got an issue with seeing it. However, to make it fair, I would like the whole committee who is present to be able to have a vote. I understand by them conditions that those that don't see the vehicle can't vote. Therefore, I would think it would be unfair to do so.
I accept your point, and it's something that we have thought about and deliberated on. It seems that with the hybrid situation that we have now with committees, we have to reach a compromise somehow. But if you prefer not to, then no one will go out to see the vehicle.
And again, it puts me in a position, Mr. Chairman, that the vehicle is there, but I would like all members, and I appreciate they're on Zoom, that they're not able to see the vehicle.
Well, that's the condition we will apply if no one can see it. If if you don't like the two, if you would like the two present to see it and they can't, therefore none of us will go and see it. I'm sure that's the best way out.
Yeah,
Can I ask you?
I totally agree with you as Vice Chair.
Yeah, thank you. The issue is, as you've pointed out, that if some are seeing other information that other members aren't, then the whole application is not being considered by everyone. That's why that reason is. But if the committee are happy with that, obviously Mr. O'Neill's made that point. If you're happy to proceed.
Yeah.
And with council.
If I could just clarify with the legal officer in subsequent, and obviously I don't know what the decision of this committee will be, but until determination, but in any respect of an appeal, if the determination was negative and we went to an appeal, then we would be classifying that it would be unfair within that into the magistrates.
Yeah, it's really whether, are you inviting the members to go and view your vehicle?
Chair, could I come in?
Hang on, Councillor Eel, so we'll have to determine on this first before we do anything. My proposal to the committee is that we don't go and see the vehicle. There is no obligation for you to bring the vehicle, and therefore there's no obligation for us to go and see it. And I'm sure I'm quite right in saying that, Mr. Donnelly.
That's correct. The vehicle is brought as the applicant wishes to bring it or not. The members can make a determination whether the vehicle's here or not.
So I'll put you to the vote. Those in favour of that we don't go and see the vehicle, please. That's fine. Thank you very much.
Chair.
Councillor Eels, yes.
Yeah, I think also the point Mr. O'Neill's making as well is that because Councillor Abdul and I are not there in person, I think the relevant point is that we're not judging the condition of the vehicle. We're judging the vehicle as a whole. It's plain and simple. It either hasn't or it has got side entry for wheelchairs, and it clearly hasn't, whether we look at it in person or whether we look at a picture of it on the report. So I think it wasn't really a matter anyway for whether we could take part in the debate. The car clearly hasn't got side loading. So I don't think it was really ever a big issue whether we saw the car or not to make a determination whether the Hackney was granted or not. So I know you voted on it now, but it wasn't really a lot of an issue whether we saw the car or not, because the issue is that it hasn't got a side loading door.
Thank you, Councillor Reels. Anybody else, please? Harry? Any other questions? No, so we will go to determine. What do you want to, Mr. O'Neill?
No, Mr. Chairman, not a closing remark other than the fact that this continues. Obviously, if it's granted, it continues to allow us to build the business that we want to put in Conway. Obviously, if it's a setback, it could have an effect on what we do within the county. And I just ask you to look on that point. Thank you.
We will take everything into consideration. Thank you very much. So we will go into private session now, please. Thank you. Yes, please, Catherine. Catherine's going to explain to you, Councillor Abdul and Councillor Keith.
Thank you. The practical difficulties we've got a live stream, obviously, of the session. So we will go into private session in the room, but I will ask you both to join on a separate Zoom link for the deliberations. Okay, that's the only way I can think to do it, I'm afraid. Okay, so I'll send you an email now with a link, and then the live streaming obviously continues until members are back in the room. It's the only way, I think. Thank you. See you.
We decided not to grant.
Oh, yeah.
Go on then. Hang on then. Yeah. Yeah. Thank you. Are we all back? Thank you very much. Mr O'Neill, diolch yn fawr. Thank you very much. Our decision, and we've deliberated on this, our decision is not to grant. The policy is our starting point. And we see no reason to depart from this policy, taking into account the relevant legislation. We did take into account about it being an electric vehicle, but we didn't think it was enough for us to make an exception in this case. Obviously, you may be disappointed in this, and you have a right of appeal, of course. But the reasons will follow in a letter in due course. Thank you very much. And that concludes the meeting. We have no other items to discuss. I'd just like to thank you very much, members, because it's been a long meeting, and officers. Thank you very much, and enjoy the rest of the evening.